Year, James!
Happy New Year, Dad. We finally made it.
We did. The nightmare of 2019's over. Time to make 2020 the best it can possibly be. Say, got any New Year's resolutions?
1,000
1,000 what?
subscribers.
Better your online community. I see what you did there. But I was thinking something a little closer to home. You know, get involved, be more neighborly.
Ha! New Year? Who dis? Neighborly? You still haven't met the guy who moved in across the street?
That guy does give me the creeps. But you know what? You're right.
I what?
You're right. If I'm gonna do this New Year's resolution, you gotta start somewhere. Let's go meet the neighbor.
Now?
Yeah, let's go!
Wait, did you hear that?
No, sorry. There's 2 for $1 tacos yesterday.
No, not that. That!
What is going on in there?
Let's go check it out. This is...
Hello, neighbor.
Hello Neighbor is a horror stealth puzzler developed by Dynamic Pixels and published by TinyBuild. Initially released for Windows and Xbox One as a timed Microsoft exclusive, the game would later expand its reach to PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, iOS, and Android.
The version we played was on the PC, and it looked great. The art style of the game leans more toward bright, colorful cartoons than the stereotypical dark drab colors of other small horror games. A look that isn't hardware intensive, so it looks great no matter where you play it.
The visuals are fine, but can we talk about where this game gets its real tension? The music. Most of the game you play in silence, only hearing the noise that you make as you sneak around. Once the neighbor gets close though, things change. We get a tense, fast-paced, booming track. The use of music in this game is as important as the lack thereof. The silence becomes just as tense as the music, leaving you wondering, where is he?
So it looks good, sounds good, and also plays good. You run, jump, and crouch to explore and evade the neighbor, all while picking up, using, and throwing up to 4 items to solve puzzles and expand your access to the house.
The controls are easy to figure out, but I've found them to be a bit floaty and inaccurate. And don't even get me started on the collision. Something about even looking at a box the wrong way got me flung straight up into the air.
Okay, so it might need a few tweaks, but the real diamond in the rough here is the story. You play as a young boy investigating a startling noise and suspicious activity of his neighbor. You know, like that Simpsons episode where Bart thinks he sees Flanders kill his wife?
Oh, you mean like Jeffries in Rear Window?
Oh no! That sinister-looking kid is coming to kill me! Help! Help! Help!
Anyway, you parkour around and solve puzzles to gain access to more of the house. Once you get the key to the basement, you discover a secret door in the washing machine that leads to a bunker. It looks like someone has been kept down here for a while, and once you try and make your exit, you're caught by the neighbor. Some time passes and you finally get your chance to escape. Now dirty, with tattered clothes, you must sneak around and solve puzzles to escape the towering fences your neighbor has built during your capture. And once you do get the key to your escape, you just run and run.
From that day on, if I was going somewhere, I was running.
The neighbor considers giving chase, but has to secure things still inside and lets you go.
Years later, you receive a letter that causes you to return to your childhood home. Upon arriving, you see the neighbor's house, which is now nothing more than a foundation and a shell of its former self. Even in the state of the house, it still gives you the creeps and is haunted by a shadowy figure. After a look around, you return home and receive a weird phone call. Exhausted, you lay down to rest. Cut short by screams of terror, you awaken to see the neighbor's house is back and bigger than ever before. This time we enter the house determined to get answers. After working your way through a series of challenges, you acquire the moves you need for the final encounter. You make your way back to the place where you were captured all those years ago.
The finale of the game starts you in a house with a giant neighbor outside. You must bring the oversized terror to his knees to make your way into the house on his back. Inside the house is a younger version of you. Young you is being stalked by a shadow monster, and your job is to act as a human shield, protecting yourself. With each shot you block, you grow in size until you become larger than the shadow monster and defeat it. After the shadow is slain, you are dropped in an all-white world with only the exit and a 2-room house with the neighbor and his own shadow monster. Finally, having conquered your fears, you begin moving boxes into your home.
And that on its own is a good story. A narrative of a curious boy taken as a child, makes his escape only to return and overcome his fears. But where this game really comes together is in the motivations of the neighbor. To get this story, you have to get caught by the neighbor a certain number of times to get a nightmare sequence.
The nightmares represent events in the neighbor's life. Here is where the story of a child being kidnapped turns into a story of a man trying to protect the only family he has left. Through the nightmares, we learn that the neighbor used to be a happy person with a family. One day that all changed when the neighbor and his wife were in a car accident. Gravely injured in the crash, we see the neighbor waiting to hear the fate of his wife in a hospital. The passing of his wife leads to the neighbor to redirect his grief and anger towards his kids. Leaving its toll on the kids, we see the effects it has on the son. We see as his entire life goes from normal to completely upside down, and eventually leading to his grief also turning into anger. In one moment of rage, the son makes a horrible mistake and pushes his sister off a high place, and she dies.
Given the clues that we get through the game, we're led to believe that the kidnapping we hear in the beginning is the neighbor trying to lock his son in the basement. Placing missing children posters for a boy and girl, the neighbor would rather have us believe that his children are taken or missing than have the truth come out, fearing what the world would do to his son if they found out what he did to his sister. The bunker, once thought to hold kids against their will, is actually a loving recreation of the outside world to make his son feel more comfortable. And while we never see or can confirm what happened to the son, this does help us understand the ending better. The neighbor can't leave his tiny 2-room house because he can't face his own personal shadow monster. He is forever trapped by fear. The fear of what he did to his son? The fear he will lose his son anyway? The fear the world will find out?
Like I said, great story.
Almost.
Almost?
I had one small problem with it. And to explain, let me ask you this. When you first heard the full story of Hello Neighbor, where did you hear it?
The internet.
And when you got stuck on a puzzle and couldn't find the answer, where'd you look?
The internet.
And that's the only problem I have with this game. The game looks great, it sounds great, it plays great, for the most part. But the story and the direction of this game are way too subtle. I feel like you have to scrub every area and use every item in every possible scenario to try and make it through. Otherwise, you're just going to be wandering around lost. This is one of those what I like to call internet lore games. A game that becomes popular and an internet personality gets their hands on it, and all of a sudden it becomes vastly popular with the younger audience.
So now you want someone holding your hand telling you what to do every step of the way, like some kind of annoying fairy?
Hey, listen!
I'm not saying you need a magical companion in your ear telling you the next step the whole time, but for most people, the lack of direction and the ultra subtlety of the story are going to be too big of obstacles to justify playing the game.
Call it internet lore or whatever you want, but once I knew how the puzzles worked, I had a blast parkouring all over the neighbor's house, throwing everything that wasn't nailed down through his windows.
And while the story was much deeper than I was ready to give the game credit for, unless you're the type of gamer to sit down with a guide and strategize and optimize, I really don't think most people will enjoy playing this game.
Well, that's it for Hello Neighbor, a horror game that is fun to explore in.
With a story that you have to dig way too hard to enjoy. Until next time, I've been Mike.
I've been James.
Stay classic.
Boy, listen close.